Welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. This is Eric Stopper. Today's episode is brought to you by Buy Box Experts. Buy Box Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. We've got a team of consultants who would love to talk with you about your Amazon presence. Please reach out to us. Go to buyboxexperts.com, click on the free analysis button. You'll be connected with me or a member of my team. We would love to help. This episode is a part of a 10-part series we are doing with the geniuses at Kenshoo. We thought to bring together our collective knowledge in a way that was fun and essentially educationally indispensable. If you're trying to get to the next level of advertising on Amazon, then this is the podcast series for you. Today, I am joined by Julia Nelson, Director of E-com Expert Services and Enablement at Kenshoo. Julia, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
So today, we're talking about the Amazon advertising UI, and the title of the episode is Wins and Woes, which I think can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And one of the things that I wanted to focus on is some of the limitations that sellers and vendors might not be aware of, right? They only have their seller or vendor tool. They're just doing their best with what they have, and they don't realize that there are tools out there that can help them do a whole lot more. And so the first question that I have for you is just about Kenshoo in general, right? What are some of the things that people see as a value add when they use the software, and what are some of the most frequently used tools that are outside of what Amazon offers? Yeah,
kind of where to start with that. I think there's a lot of elements. I think first and foremost, kind of the low-hanging fruit would be reporting flexibility. So within the Amazon UI, you have quite a bit of limitations about historical data or the types of data that you can extract from the UI. So within a tool like Kenshoo, you can aggregate historical data. So once you are loaded onto that platform, you can slice and dice your data as far back as you can, as well as other access to other specific reports like out-of-budget information, serving time information at the campaign level or even ad level, so that you can start to make really granular optimizations at the product out within your campaign. And separately would be optimizations in general. Within Amazon, a lot of that is going to be really manual within the campaign UIs. You can make, bulk sheet or like a bulk change within the UI, or you have to go through a bulk sheet with maybe Excel rules that you'll upload back up. It becomes a really manual process. So anything that's repeatable, you can essentially set a rule for within Kenshoo. You can make that an automated action to increase or decrease bids. You can use it for day parting strategies to stretch your campaigns longer into the day. And then alongside that, we also have bidding algorithms. So that's obviously not something that's present within Amazon, but it will essentially aggregate campaigns together in one bucket and focus them towards a KPI goal. So whether that's return or a spend threshold, whatever that is, you can essentially set that as your target within Kenshoo, and it will do the heavy lifting from a bid management perspective to get you there.
So tell me a little bit, this is kind of a challenging question, but we have found, and some of the brands that we talk with find that if they just turn on their automatic campaigns and they've written a really good listing, and they set a budget, a daily budget, and then they track just even the silliest of metrics like ACoS, they're typically able to do like a decent job. All of these little, I guess not little, all these big features allow for the user to set these goals and to make these optimization rules. And so have you seen like a trackable difference between the efficiency of some of the best Amazon Seller Central only campaigns and the Kenshoo advertising platform leveraged campaigns?
Yeah, so it's a question about automatic campaigns or just kind of seller versus vendor. I think it's all about kind of the approach and what your goals are. So like if you're, myopically focused within advertising metrics and just those auto campaigns and you're strictly looking at return, then of course you can achieve those things. But are you really making a movement within the category overall and kind of more incremental budget levels, or even the share within the category as well. Are you getting first page placements within that? So there's placement reporting that you can also aggregate within Kenshoo, or limited views within the UI as well. So you can kind of see what placements am I even picking up? Is this going to be a sustainable growth for my products or brand overall? Versus if you kind of crank up your spend and grow from a share of voice perspective, and also looping in what that's doing to your organic and more sustainable sales, right? Like if it's going to feed that flywheel, then why not crank up your ad spend, right, to make that more fruitful?
So there was a lot of very technical expertise in what you just said, and some of the folks that listen to our podcast, they, maybe they're kind of new at this, and so as kind of a very simple breakdown of these optimization goals that people have, what are some of the things that people should be looking at in terms of having a really good Amazon advertising presence? Like, are there like a top 3 optimized for this, and this, or is it really more dynamic than that?
I think it's as dynamic as you want to make it, right? But if we are first starting out and maybe you do just have those auto campaigns running, then certainly let's go through the search term report, see what kind of terms you're picking up on, and what's maybe the highest returning search query, or maybe ones that are really low returns and not relevant to your products. So kind of combing through that report and seeing what is applicable to your, and then putting that back into your manual campaign, so then you can start to layer in these more sophisticated strategies and being intentional on what products are serving for which keywords. But really, you need to make sure that you're graduating to manual campaigns and not just getting focused on, my auto campaigns are running, it's a great ROI, but being more intentional on what you're bidding on exactly, as well as segmenting out your different strategies, right? Within autos, you don't know what those queries are. So maybe it's all brand, and that's not completely incremental or where you want to be spending your money. So the only real way to control that would be to put that into manual campaigns, and again, being more intentional on what you're bidding on.
Interesting. One of the things that you talked about is Kenshoo allows you to track how often, how frequently your ads are served, how long they last, or what was that about tracking the serve rate, or what did you call it?
Yeah, there's a couple different paths within that. So one would be out of budget notifications. So we essentially have a report that will track at what hour certain campaigns are running out of budget. So that would be certainly a spark for a conversation on maybe we should try a day parting strategy. If budgets are currently capped and you don't have those resources, then maybe we could start to pause them earlier in the day so that they'll last until 5 p.m. when we know shoppers are really at their peak shopping trend. And we can kind of monitor that, right? And as you would expect, it's less competitive later in the day because a lot of people are running out of budget early in the day. And so there's less people in the auction the longer you can last. So that's kind of one approach. And then the other would be serving time. So this is really going to be driven by the ad level serving status. So if you're lost buy box, your ad's not serving. And that can get really convoluted and hard to track within the Amazon UI. So we have certain reports that can, pull that over time, and we can see what those errors are. For example, maybe this ASIN's lost buy box 80% of the time over the last week. Do we really want to be supporting this within advertising? Or other times it could be something within the content. There's kind of a nuance on a product image that could be preventing that ad from serving. So it really escalates kind of retail insights so that you can go make those changes on the back end and be more effective within your advertising.
Wow, so using advertising and the reporting inside of this tool to be able to fuel the optimization and management efforts of the front-end listing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, or even just what assortment you're supporting within advertising. If something's very unstable and losing the buy box, then maybe let's switch that out with an ASIN that is more stable.
Very interesting. So one glaring question that I've had is you look at Amazon and they're this 8,000-ton gorilla, and they have this team of data scientists and software engineers and all kinds of folks who are always updating this tool. They don't even incorporate some of the things that the other traditional online advertising platforms provide. Like Facebook even gives you a log of all of the changes that have happened inside of the account, but Amazon doesn't do that. And they don't have all these robust tools that Kenshoo has available, even though they definitely have the data, right? It's got to be sitting around there somewhere. Why don't you think that they incorporate these into their UI as it currently exists?
It's a fantastic question. And some, they kind of have kept a lot of things close to the vest. And, it could be as simple as they just don't know how to package that or present that back to the advertiser, or what the use case would be for utilizing that. And it might just open up a can of worms on, all of the different perspectives from vendor and seller central as well. That has presented the solution for other third-party technologies to step in and fill that void and fill that gap. I will say, Amazon can be a partner in providing those types of data, maybe outside of the UI, but it's certainly a huge gap within the UI, and it's really hard to tell why.
Yeah, it's hard. We look into this this crystal ball and try to figure out what Amazon's doing, and it's typically pretty impossible. You guys are pretty close to them, though. You have developers that are in that API all the time, making tools for them, right? Or I guess with
absolutely.
them.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Now, lots of questions. So you've hit on a lot of different points. I kind of want to talk through the things that Kenshoo and the Amazon advertising UI have first, and I'll just list them off. You guys provided me with an easy list here. So Amazon and Kenshoo do international markets. They both do sponsored products management, sponsored brand management, combinable filters and standard reporting, like quote unquote for Amazon. You can be creative with those, but having an automated tool is really super nice. And then the list stops. Amazon doesn't have any of these other like 12 features that you guys have. The first one that I see is automatic bid to ROI optimization. You touched on that a little bit, but give me a little more substance there.
Yeah, so essentially this is our algorithmic bidding tool. Again, it's going to set a grouping of campaigns towards an ROI target set by the advertiser. So this means that Kenshoo is going to go in on a daily or multiple times a day to make bid adjustments to strive towards that ROI goal. And we can also layer in a budget on top of that if you want to meet a certain budget threshold within a given amount of time. So that kind of dynamic sort of optimization and management is just simply not provided within the Amazon UI. They are providing the campaigns essentially, and it's up to the advertiser to make any sort of changes on top of that. So within Kenshoo, we kind of take that day-to-day lift off the advertiser by using this bid to ROI optimization.
I have a hard question for you, and you may or may not be able to answer it. I didn't prompt you with this beforehand, but in order for something to be optimized, right? I'm gonna put forth my bid, and I'm gonna have a click, right? My first click, and then if it didn't result in a sale, does Kenshoo just turn that one off, or is there like a certain amount of clicks, a certain amount of impressions that are automatically baked in? Pull back the veil a little bit for me and help me understand.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't have all of the inputs by any means on what's going into all of those things, but it's certainly taking into account, how many impressions or clicks it has behind that before it's going to make changes. It's certainly not going to be volatile on making an optimization off of one click.
Right.
For obvious reasons, you want to have certain click thresholds, especially depending on the product, right? It might take 100 clicks to get a sale for a really expensive project, or it might take 5 for a CPG product. So it really depends, right, on that click threshold, but certainly taking into account all of those different elements and the campaign history as well. So you can put a campaign into this policy when it has at least 7 days of data. So by then, hopefully it has more than a couple clicks for keywords. And then you can kind of graduate into something a bit more sophisticated, a product called Budget Navigator, where you can marry your ROI targets with your budget, and that requires 30 days of data. So we do want to have that historical reference so that our ROI tool can be as accurate as possible and start to make those changes based off of clicks, impressions, etc.
This is amazing. So Even without all the different kind of data science behind the decisions, I mean, that's a pretty compelling thesis for that aspect of the Kenshoo UI, in that you are wasting money. That's the underlying assumption there, is that since you are not bid to ROI optimizing, you're probably wasting money on keywords and campaigns that are just not going to get you any money at all, or lower amounts of money than if you would have used the Kenshoo app. Is that a fair summary?
That's a fair summary. And then on the inverse, also maybe not maxing out or capitalizing on the keywords that are driving a lot of ROI to your business, and making sure that you're, maxing out that potential, again, within your ROI constraints. So it's not going to overdrive. So you still have that, to fall back on your ROI targets, but it is going to push where it sees opportunities.
Incredible. Now, is there a sweet spot in terms of how much revenue or how much ad spend you should have before these features are critical, where it's like, okay, now you're spending 10,000, like you can't afford not to be using these types of tools?
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. The more data that you have behind your campaigns, aka the more budget you have behind your campaigns, the more accurate and kind of sophisticated our algorithms can be. Versus if you're spending, $5 or $10 a day, then it's going to be, there's not a ton of margin of error, right? You're getting really kind of specific bids to not exceed that daily budget. So there's not a lot of wiggle room. So I think that 10K mark actually that you said is probably that sweet spot on, you should be introducing an algorithm to help you out with that campaign management and to make sure that you're being as effective as possible.
In reference to like how much data is necessary to make the tool really effective, is there a point of diminishing marginal returns, or is just more data always better?
More data is always better. If there's diminishing returns within an advertising spend threshold that it addresses, but in regards just to data, no, more the merrier.
Right on. Save your data, guys. Save the data. Always export it. That historical piece that you talked about is in here as reporting, right? So I see scheduled then automated reports, comprehensive analysis, right? A lot of these things kind of hit on multiple variants, but I think I can only go back 12 months or so for my business reports, and then for my advertising reports, I don't know that I can go 90 days in the past. Is Kenshoo held to the same constraints, or is it able to go even further?
Yeah, so the advertising UI, it's very finicky on what reports you can go back and pull. So some are 60, some are 90. They did just release within the UI that you can pull sponsored products, campaign level data. I think it's 2 years or through 2018. But that's very granular, and it's only at the campaign level. So any sponsored brands, not going to be accounted for, anything like that. So that is a consolation on the Amazon side. But when you're loaded into a platform like Kenshoo, when you first get onboarded, you can go back 60 days within the API. And then if you are able to get your advertising historical data in a format, we can load that back into Kenshoo. But once you log on to Kenshoo, then all of your data will aggregate thereon. So if you're on the platform for 5 years, you're going to have 5 years of data, as opposed to Amazon, where you got that, nuanced historical reference.
Man, Amazon doesn't care about you. Amazon doesn't care about any of us. But
no, there's always a catch. Always a catch.
Man, okay. Now, one question I have to ask it before I forget, on the fact that you can track, like, if an ad is serving, your buy box winning percentage, right? So you can make these optimization decisions. Does it also track competitors' ads serving, like on the front end of Amazon? Will it go and like scrape the different ones that are populating and see like how many times they're populating, or are we still not quite to that point in the Amazon advertising space?
Yeah, so strictly within the serving areas, that is going to be focused on your products and your products only. And when you as the seller are in the buy box, regardless if there's another seller in the buy box, so that will be only focused and not give any sort of competitor information. With that said, there are other data sets that we can pull in, like share of voice, to kind of give that competitive insight. So you can monitor, for given keywords, maybe that keyword that's most specific to your category or your products. If you start to track that keyword, you can see what other competitors are really maybe overdriving within sponsored products. And so you can kind of address, okay, this is a key competitor and they're really dialed in within sponsored products, or maybe some opportunities to target competitors that are not very well supported within sponsored products, and kind of introduce some conquesting strategies on top of that. And from that, you can infer, right, if they're having some buy box issues or if they're even serving their products on whether they're actually spending any money on advertising or not. But it's not going to get down to that ASIN level just yet. Okay,
that makes sense. It seems right now, and I talk with brands literally every day, right? Like, and they're telling me about their problems. One of the questions I ask them is, who are your competitors? And you would be so surprised at how often they do not know the answer to that question in terms of price, in terms of product quality. It sounds like the advertising UI that Kenshoo has is able to shed some light on who those competitors really are and how share of voice is dictated in that market.
Yep, absolutely. It's really going to give you a quick view at the landscape within the search results page and what brands are most present, or kind of your top competitors. And you can kind of get a lay of the land from a search results page perspective. Another kind of nuanced piece to this would be that search term report. So that same thing that we talked about earlier with auto campaigns, making sure that we're combing through there. Maybe we're finding some diamonds in the rough or some brands where you're really opportunistic, and maybe have a high return against those brands, and really making sure that you implement that as a strategy and, again, scale that out and kind of find what that full opportunity looks like.
That's perfect. So going down this list some more, we've mentioned day parting a couple of times. My definition of day parting is scheduling your bids or your ad groups to turn on at a certain time of day. Would you extend that definition at all?
Yeah, you could really do it within any level of the campaign. You could do it at the whole campaign level. You could do certain ad groups. You could do certain products. You could do certain keywords. Wow. Kind of the approach we've taken since you're getting that notification at the campaign level is that report I discussed earlier, where you're getting the notifications on what campaigns are running out at what hour of the day. So the ones that are running out really early in the day, let's maybe address those and get creative on how we can stretch that budget. So maybe it's reevaluating what is the strategy here in general. Should I be increasing my budget and maybe pulling back on other campaigns? Or let's test out pausing it from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. And maybe that lasts me 8 more hours into the day because it's less competitive. So you could see maybe CPC start to drop or conversion rates increase, ROI increase, all of those metrics. And you see that your budget is running out later in the day, or maybe not at all. So those are the types of things that you can start to test and get creative with the budgets and campaigns that you have active.
When you have a bunch of ASINs, this can get super difficult, right? To be able to track when each of your campaigns for each of your products is running out. Now, I have products that I can just see in the morning. I make most of my sales because they're for construction workers. For the folks who, might not be like bought into the idea of day parting, is there like a metric that we can point them to inside of their seller or vendor central that would help them kind of realize, hey, maybe I do have an issue that would be solved by day parting?
Yeah, I think first you can put some advertising as well. I think that's a really good call out with construction workers, and that you could track your real-time sales to see that it is happening earlier in the day. I think there's some other brands within CPG or B2B even, that Monday through Friday, their sales are most consistent, and then over the weekend it drops off. So then you can start to implement those types of strategies too, but at a higher level by pausing on maybe certain days or dialing back spend on certain days. But I think pulling in real-time metrics, whether within ARA Premium as well, where you can see your spend kind of spike at the beginning of the day and then level out. For a lot of brands, it could be the inverse, that after 5 p.m. sweet spot when people are out of work, at home, relaxing for the evening and making all of their buying decisions as well.
Genius. So custom tagging. I look at this and I see dimensions, categories, calculated metrics, and it feels like my first day of calculus back in the day. So can you break this down for me? What's custom tagging?
Yeah, basically, it's a column that you could add alongside all of your campaigns. So kind of use cases for this would be product categories that you want to make sure you have separate reporting for, or again, the strategy types. What campaign is devoted to what strategy type? This campaign's devoted to all branded keywords. This campaign's devoted to conquesting, things like that. And then once you tag those, then you can get super granular within your reporting. Like, show me all of my branded campaigns and let me see those KPIs. Show me all of my campaigns associated with a specific subcategory. And so you can start to compare and contrast performance metrics against each other, and then also layer on additional optimization opportunities as well. So really it's kind of the gateway or the enabler for all of the tools by making sure that you're really granular within how you can slice your data.
And I guess right now, this is the way that you would do this inside of Seller Central is you would just name your campaign and ad groups really carefully so that it's like manual, discovery, started on this date, non-brand, stuff like that. So Kenshoo makes it so that you can just tag them and just track all that separately.
Yes, and so that you could filter multiple things. So when you have that long string within your campaign name, you can only really search right for the text and be like contains whatever, but you can't layer that on top of each other. Versus if you have multiple dimensions and tags, now you can just filter multiple columns like you would for what ad type or impression thresholds or whatever the filters Amazon provides you. So it's just like adding like that column as another KPI you can filter for.
Wow, sounds like a data scientist's dream. Are you able to like create charts and reports and graphs with this data?
Yep, absolutely. So everything, there's a reporting suite basically. So anything that you see within Kenshoo, you can make into a report yourself. So if you wanted to look at sponsored products and have daily level exports, you can export that yourself and maybe put it into an Excel document. Or the workflow we really like to do is to have this delivered automatically on a daily basis to something like Google Data Studios, and then you can set up a custom view with whatever graphs you'd like. You have the same filter options, but it's essentially self-sustaining once you set it up within one template that you want to see on a recurring basis, and then Kenshoo will take care of the rest. So there's a lot of flexibility within our reporting options. It just depends on what you want to do with it.
Man, that is fascinating. So moving down this list, I mean, there's so many things in here, and it feels like the average e-commerce manager, right, who is sometimes they're just like, hey, like their brand's like, hey, we should get on Amazon. Can you just own that? And they're like listening to this podcast, to try to learn stuff. It seems pretty complicated for them to be able to like, wow, you're showing them all these amazing metrics. Where's typically the best place for them to start when they're using a tool like Kenshoo?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a crawl, walk, run approach, right? You want to make sure you're laying the right foundation, and really that starts with your campaign structures, going back to those auto campaigns, making sure that we're going through the learnings within that search term report, setting up manual campaigns, getting the right ASIN supported, kind of focusing on that foundational piece. So then we can start to layer on additional tools. So once you have that kind of laid out, then we can start to group campaigns by what their ROI goals are, and then you can introduce the ROI algorithm on top of that. And then getting more sophisticated by introducing the share of voice elements or budget navigator or custom reporting, introducing those things after you kind of get that foundational piece addressed. So you could certainly take a phased approach when onboarding to a fairly complex tool. And
come to us for help as well. We've done it a bunch of times. The Buy Box Experts guys. Yeah, we love Kenshoo. So we've talked about scheduled and automated reports. We've talked a little bit about advanced reporting. I see OOB under this.
Yeah, out of budget.
Oh, the out of budget. Okay, we've talked about that.
Yep.
Amazon stores, ARAP, and DSP integrated reporting. Yeah, I've seen stores inside of Amazon. There's something that we can do there by building them, but I'm guessing this is talking about tracking them and understanding how people interact with that page.
Yeah, you could start to export that and aggregate it together, but really we like to look at it within sponsor brands as well. So you can drive to a product list where you pick your ASIN assortment, or you can drive to particular pages within a brand store. So when you do that within Kenshoo, you can have that visibility. So you can kind of maybe, test 4 different sponsored brands campaigns, driving to different landing pages on your brand store, see what's most fruitful, and then maybe move forward with the kind of winner of that test, if you will.
Yeah.
So we give that visibility onto what type of landing page sponsored brands are driving to, so that, again, you can implement a test and learn approach within sponsored brands. And then the other elements are, oh, go ahead.
No, yeah. Still on this note, go ahead.
I was just going to mention the other data elements of ARIP, or Seller Central data. You could either aggregate that within that GDS report that I discussed, Google Data Studios, where you're sending all of your information from Kenshoo into kind of a customized view where you can build whatever graphs or charts that you want to see on a regular basis. You could also start to marry that and pair that with your top line sales data. So that could be ARA Premium, that could be Seller Central Business Reports. So when you start to bridge those things together, then you can understand, what's that doing to my top line sales? Because we don't want to be too myopically focused, right, within advertising. Certainly there's a ton of optimizations that you can do, but our ultimate goal is going to be driving top line sales. So the only way to really have that visibility is to bring the data sets together.
Right.
So that's something we do within GDS, and then within the analysis grid or within Kenshoo altogether, we're working on solutions there as well. We have ARAP support right now that's going to marry alongside ASIN level data, so we can start to make more sophisticated advertising decisions on the fly. So that's certainly something we're building on top of constantly to ingest other data sources as well.
Incredible. Okay. And then data warehousing, integration with S3, FTP, GCD, and BI systems. Those are a lot of acronyms.
Yeah.
Give me some help here.
Yeah, that's essentially the GDS path I discussed, but you could also go to any of these other systems as well, like Power BI, an FTP, any kind of destination that you want your data to be sent to, we can plug into that.
Okay.
Again, the one that we use the most is going to be GDS, just because it tends to be the most seamless and kind of user-friendly for getting a dashboard set up with your reporting KPIs.
That makes sense. And Amazon doesn't allow you to export that data into these other systems? No integration tools?
No scheduled reports. I think you can schedule it maybe to email you, and you're always going to have that data cap issue. So there's a lot of nuances within that versus this is just going to be repeatable sending right away.
Now, the last piece of this, and something that we'll probably discuss on another podcast, is the cross-retailer support. The fact that Kenshoo can plug into Amazon and Walmart. Is it just copy and paste? Is it duplicated? Does the machine know that they're different platforms and there's different types of consumer behavior? How deep of a dive does it do on each of them?
Yeah, so our product support or our kind of tech support within both of those are going to be a little bit different depending on what the API provides us. So what Walmart provides through KPIs are different than Amazon. So there's a lot of nuances within that. But the beauty is going to be it's the same workflow for the advertiser or the agency, whoever's managing campaigns. When they go into Kenshoo, they're going to see their Walmart campaigns right alongside their Amazon campaigns. So you can start to do more bulk optimizations and really just having that plain visibility into both platforms. And then you can start to leverage your learnings between both of those. They're both dynamic e-commerce channels, and there's lots of opportunity to kind of marry your learnings together on both platforms. And this is similar to how you would approach multiple accounts within Amazon. So if you are advertising in the EU and you have 5 different marketplaces, you have to toggle into each different login within Amazon versus Kenshoo. It's one login, you're going to see all countries all alongside each other so that you can get that insight right away.
Incredible. So is there anything else that you have to say about the Amazon native UI in kind of the context of comparing it to the Kenshoo tool that you think is important for our listeners to understand?
I think we've really covered a lot of detail that kind of encompasses the major differences between the two platforms, but ultimately kind of the line in the sand is Amazon's showing you all of your campaigns and you can make basic changes, but as far as scale goes, that's where Amazon is extremely limited, and that's where something like Kenshoo stepping in so that you can scale out your campaigns, get more granular with your data, and just have plain visibility and control. Is where, again, something like Kenshoo can step in.
Great. You can find the list that I was referencing in the show notes. And then you can, of course, go to Kenshoo. Is it .com? I think it's Kenshoo.com, KENSHOO.com to go and check them out. Julia, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Eric.
To finish today's podcast, I want to share some final thoughts. For large brands who are seeking to wholesale product to a trusted Amazon reseller, we at BuyBox Experts are big fans of the team over at Pattern. They've helped hundreds of large brands to capitalize on the Amazon channel while also helping implement channel governance best practices that allow the brands to have consistency across all their sales channels. For more information, go to pattern.com and reach out to their team there, and they'll be able to help you. We hope to see you soon on the BuyBox Experts podcast.
Thanks for listening to the BuyBox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.